Top of the morning, top of the morning, top of the morning. Buen dia, saludo, saludo, saludo. Comrade salute, revolutionary salute. This is the Underlock and Key Show. This is the Underlock and Key Show. Check in, check in, check in, check in. All right. So we're gonna go with the first article I pull up. All right. Top of the morning, top of the morning. Ramadan Mubarak. So, yes, you see me tired, not drinking coffee or nothing like that, because it's Ramadan. For those who don't know what Ramadan is, it's when the Quran was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, by Andrew Jabril. And also, it's the month that Muslims, throughout the world fast, for those who are able to fast, from sun up to sundown. From dawn to sundown. That's how it is. From dawn to sundown. That's how the fast. You can't eat or drink, or you can't engage in sexual relations. Can't listen to music, let's say like hood music, unless it's like positive. Talking about something that's productive, producive, and it has some type of sustenance. Like some of the Muslim rappers, even some regular conscious rappers, you can listen to some of that music, as long as it's not promoting haram. Other than that, it's really, about connecting with Allah and also like purifying oneself, not just the outer beauty, but also the inner beauty, purifying your inner self. All right. So we're gonna go with the segment, right? So this segment right here is called On Mental Health and Revolutionary Discipline. All right, it's by Paul Dawson, right? And my eyes. It says, whereas bourgeoisie discipline is mechanical and authoritarian, socialist discipline is autonomous and spontaneous. Whoever is a socialist or wants to become one does not obey. He commands himself. He imposes a rule of life on his impulses, on his disorderly aspiration. The discipline imposed on citizens by the bourgeoisie state makes them into subjects. People who delude themselves that they exert an influence on the course of events. The discipline of the Socialist Party makes a subject into a citizen who is now rebellious, precisely because he or she has become conscious of their personality and feels it is shackled and cannot freely express itself in the world. Antonio Gramsci. In a time of coronavirus, where many of us have been isolated from friends, family, and comrades for weeks or even months to end, the question of how to handle issues of mental health is more urgent than it has ever been before. The young people in America especially suffer under high rates of mental illness, depression, anxiety, and suicide ideation are up across the board. These illnesses pose special problems for socialist organizers, nearly all of whom are millennials or younger and thus members of the hardest hit generations. Liberal politicians and the crooked news media have peddled false cures throughout this mental illness epidemic in collaboration with the predatory self-care commodities industry. As many comrades have already noted, the liberal self-care and self-help approach to mental illness is individualistic and alienating. It cannot resolve the contradictions that led to depression and anxiety. It can only hide them and compartmentalize them. Our media and our politicians choose to push these methods on the masses either because they want to wash their hands of our suffering and reject any responsibility to ensure our well-being, or simply because they lack imagination and cannot think beyond the petty trends of liberal ideology. We revolutionaries ought to thoroughly reject these narratives. Though many of us have internalized them to some extent, when you're in the grip of a depressive episode, it's all too easy to push your comrades away, to isolate and exclude yourself from organizing work, and to rationalize this behavior as some form of self-care. I myself have done this at times. Yeah, me too. I've seen many capable and talented comrades do it. It only makes things worse for the depressed individual, and it demoralizes our fellow organizers. Sometimes the end result is the abandonment of organized work altogether. But if people who are suffering from mental illness are not supported by their peers, then the whole organization is equally to blame for their dereliction. This is why so many calls have gone out among the left promoting community care. It is correct to advocate for community care over self-care, but it's another thing to put community care into practice. We need to give active empathy to our comrades and check in with them regularly. When they show signs of apathy, anxiety, or despair, we should directly engage with them and take concrete steps to resolve the situation. This can involve any number of specific actions to relieve specific needs. If comrades are going hungry, we ought to feed them. If they are lonely, we ought to spend time with them. If comrades are struggling financially, we should make every effort to relieve their financial burdens. We cannot afford to remain oblivious to one another's pain. If we don't even support our fellow revolutionaries, how will we serve the masses? But when we consider the onslaught of mental illness among the people of our country, we also must conclude that it is not simply a problem of isolated individuals with faulty brain chemistry. It's a social problem which is rooted in social conditions. We are not born broken. Capitalism is breaking us. Going to therapy once a week and taking antidepressants is not going to solve this problem. And even if every person in the empire began practicing community care, the depth of despair will persist. If you work in a coal mine and begin to develop black lung, visiting a doctor regularly will not keep you from dying of pneumonia. Community care isn't going to save you either, at least not on its own. You have to change the conditions within the mind. That's facts. The Quran, let me put this part in. The Quran says this, that Allah will not change the condition of the people until the people change the conditions within themselves first. All right. We find ourselves in a similar situation. This is why we must begin to work of building a better world. It's hard to get up and engage in organizational work when we are filled with anxiety and despair, but it's absolutely necessary. If we excuse ourselves from revolutionary activity because we suffer, we are only preventing ourselves from enduring the conditions under which we suffer. As Mao Zedong once said, revolution is not a dinner party. The road to it is paved with trauma and pain. But we're already afflicted by trauma. We're already suffering pain. The system of capitalism and the murderous institution which uphold it are beating us down. They will beat us all to death if they are allowed to continue. The only question is whether you would choose to lie down and accept your fate or rise up and fight through the tears. I hope that we would choose the latter path. I am trying every day to follow it though. To adapt the famous slogan, my efforts are often neither sufficiently read nor expert. But I am certain that though, through constant and disciplined study and practice meaning action, they can be. Every person has enormous potential within themselves. When we organize within our comrades, that potential increases spontaneously. Now, revolutionary discipline is the method by which we harness this great potential. It's not merely a matter of showing up on time to meetings or reading theory every day or anything so individualized. It is a system of action and thought, constructed collaboratively upon generations of revolutionary experience, which allow us to understand and exercise power. And through our application of this discipline, we will come to find that the situation is not as hopeless as it seems. Even day as we work together, we will grow a little stronger than we were before, a little smarter, a little more revolutionary. Before long, we will be an unstoppable force. With the guidance and leadership of the masses of working class and colonialized people, we can accomplish anything. Our liberation rests firmly within our grasp. Now, as As we study the histories of our revolutionary forebears, it might seem as if the leaders of past generations are superhuman, as if they were unique geniuses who possessed some inherent quality that made them superior. We shouldn't think of them in this way. Remember that the masses are the true makers of history. Lenin, Mayo, and Sankara were only human, but they dedicated their lives to the liberatory struggle for power and steeled themselves with the discipline required to take it. So how do we use this discipline? Revolutionary discipline should be a dialectical process rather than a rigid and static doctrine. The first step is self-criticism and mutual criticism among comrades, right? Through which we can examine the flaws in our theory and praxis so as to improve them. Then we will have to take what we learn and rigorously apply it in all spheres of our lives. The revolutionary path is not a day job. We can't just hang up our caps at the end of the day shift and forget about it until Monday morning. If you're going to hang out with your liberal friends, right? Why not talk about political theory and form a study group? If you're going to shoot the shit with your coworkers on break, why not invite them out to mass work? If you're going to spend your time watching videos online, why not watch videos about communist theory? If you're going to do anything, why not make it revolutionary? If you're going to be anything, why not be a revolutionary? Hey, saludo. I have heard some comrades express that they don't want their lives to revolve around organizing. Certainly not everyone who participates in the revolution will be a full-time revolutionary. And nobody is asking comrades to dedicate 100% of their time and energy to work and study. But if you consider yourself a communist, if you recognize the necessity for socialism or barbarism, then perhaps you should ask yourself what is most important to you. Some comrades seem to be afraid of revolutionary discipline. They think that it'll bring them to commitments that they would rather not uphold. But ultimately, it is far more freeing than binding. When we're not practicing revolutionary discipline, we're simply allowing ourselves to be carried down a path that we do not choose, to passively accept the discipline and mandates of bourgeoisie hegemony. Now, I know how easy it can be to accept this path, especially under the influence of mental illness. I myself have major depression and experienced severe depressive episodes. From time to time, during these dark episodes, I try to remember what Huey P. Newton wrote in his book, Revolutionary Suicide. It is better to oppose the forces that would drive me to self-murder than to adore them. Although I risk the likelihood of death, there is at least the possibility, if not the probability, of changing intolerable conditions. This possibility is important because much in human existence is based upon hope without any real understanding of the odds. Indeed, we are all black and white alike, all in the same way, mortally ill. But before we die, how shall we die? No, how shall we live, rather? This choice is up to you. Know what I mean? So that's the conclusion of that article. The name of this article was called On Mental Health and Revolutionary Discipline by Paul Dawson. All right. So I'll be out today with the newspaper. So if anyone see me, just ask for the newspaper. I'll give you a newspaper of the Under Lock and Key show. All right. So let me see. Now this one right here is called all right. Talking points for our movement. This is from the Under Lock and Key show. This comrade name is called Orico from the United Struggle Within. It says this year. Hold up. It says this year has been filled with misinformation in the media that has been strategically broadcasted to mislead, antagonize, and keep people divided. It is beyond my comprehension to understand how people reason with themselves to vote for people to office as their representatives without analysis of what is going on. All year long, the media broadcasts visible contradictions in everything these representatives say and do, yet no one questions or holds these representatives accountable for their actions and inactions. Movement after movement has arose in opposition to inactions or actions of government officials, but to what end? Or means? To what means? These movements proclaim this and that end or means, but without any analysis of what is really taking place. I see no method of resolving these contradictions to any prosperous, even through any known movement. Now, our movement, the Myers International Ministry of Prisons and Associates, are included in my analysis because of recent dissonance. It says the spring 2020 publication attempts to demystify men's failures, but has either forgotten or not published Mao Zedong catalog weakness exhibited by themselves, or the lumpen proletarians as revolutionary soldiers. The following should be published as strong talking points for future issues. These are the talking points. Number 1, the military viewpoint. What is the military viewpoint? A tendency to regard fighting as the only task of the army, avoidance of such political tasks as educating and organizing the mass of the people, arming them and helping them to establish their own political power. Without this fight political work, the whole fight is lost and its meaning and the revolutionary reason for existence. Number 2, extreme democracy. Aversion to discipline. Each commander and soldier going their own way in a carefree manner. Number 3, absolute egalitarianism. A demand that everyone be treated alike regardless of circumstances. Meanwhile, no one is created equal. Number 4, subjectivism. Holding opinions and criticism without a realistic examination of the facts and without regard for political principle. Basing opinions on random talk and wishful thinking, focusing criticism on minor issues, petty defects, and personal quirks. All of these only lead to mutual suspicion and unprincipled quarreling between people, unnecessary arguments. Number 5, individualism, vindictiveness, clickism, when you click up, the mercenary viewpoint, holding oneself responsible to individual leaders rather than to the revolution as a whole. Hedonism, an urgent desire for personal comfort and pleasure, longing to lead the hard life of struggle and find some sofa spot. Number 6, the idea of roving insurgent. And number 7, adventurism, acting blindly regardless of conditions and the state of mind of one's forces. Slack discipline on the one hand, but corporal punishment in the execution of deserters on the other, attempting to enforce rather than to inspire loyalty to cause. These are the tenets we need to analyze and play on to prevent any challenges to our rule before the revolution begins, and count on them to disrupt the revolution once it begins. All right, so be careful for the Trotskyites. Be careful for the liberals that be trying to make everything illegal, which basically fuels and keep the mass incarceration, the prison industrial complex. That's what that keeps up. All right. So with that said, saludo mi gente. Que te pasa buen día. Enjoy your day. All right. Comrade salute. Revolutionary love. All right. My name is Malik Aline, chairman of the Noble Young Lord Party. One Lord, one people, stay noble. Power to all oppressed people. Pa'lante, siempre pa'lante. Remember, preparation prevents poor performance. So positive evaluation always causes elevation, not stagnation. Peace.